So one of the primary points, the reasons we're looking at rhetoric in chapter 5, is so that we can understand the rhetorical force of an argument through the use of these different words. And we can separate that rhetorical force from our analysis of the logical validity or the soundness of an argument. The fundamental point here is that the rhetorical force of an argument contributes nothing to its logical validity or its soundness. And so what we're looking at in this chapter is trying to develop a better understanding of the rhetorical force of language so we can separate that from our analysis of the logical validity of an argument or its soundness. Consider some of these words. Rather than committing suicide, you engage in self-injurious behavior. Rather than torturing, we call it waterboarding. That sounds like some kind of boogie board skiing somebody might do, you know. Downsize rather than fired, you know. A pre-owned car. Ever notice that? They don't call them used cars anymore. Used, that's like something that somebody uses and throws away. It's a certified pre-owned Lexus. What the heck? You know? Well, you're renaming the same thing in a way that sounds better. And so your just use of a different word can strengthen your argument. The rhetorical and logical force of an argument are not related. And so we're learning about rhetoric and the rhetorical use of language so that we can better understand it and separate that from our analysis of the logic of an argument. Now, this is an interesting point. If the rhetorical force of an argument is strong, that does not mean that we should take points away from the logical validity of the argument or its soundness. We should be clear that the rhetorical force of an argument is irrelevant to the logical validity or soundness of an argument. And so, if the rhetorical force of an argument is strong, we should not take points away from the argument. We should just consider that irrelevant to our analysis of the logical validity of the argument or its soundness. Now, because you're going to see a lot of arguments and they'll be draped in these rhetorical definitions or euphemisms, and they'll use rhetorical language to strengthen their argument. And if we notice all this, we should be skeptical, but we shouldn't take points away. We should analyze the argument on its merits. Analyze the argument on its merits. Let's consider what we call euphemisms. Euphemisms are a neutral or positive expression that is used instead of one that carries negative associations. For example, a pre-owned car. This is going to sound much better than a used car. So, pre-owned is going to be what we call a euphemism, a term that refers to the same thing, but it sounds better. Okay?
Chronologically advanced for aging?
Too bulky.
Too bulky.
Pre-owned. Pre-owned. Very nice. Certified pre-owned. That's like where they have... What do? I think they lease the car for a while and maintain it. As opposed to calling them terrorists, let's call them freedom fighters. Sounds better. Sounds like a cereal you eat in the morning. Freedom fighters. These euphemisms can sometimes be useful and constructive. If you want to protect somebody's feelings, you might say that, you know, sorry to hear about your father passing on, instead of sorry to hear about how your father died. You might try to avoid that. Passed on. Often, euphemisms can be constructive and considerate. Considerate. I can imagine when you're talking to, a guy or a girl that's lost a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you can find euphemisms to take the edges off the conversation. Definitely. Now, we have euphemisms, but we also have what we call dysphemisms. What are dysphemisms? They're the opposite of a euphemism. And this would then be a term with a negative association instead of a neutral or positive expression. So we use the term terrorists instead of freedom fighters. And it makes it sound worse. For example, I saw this documentary that was on these people that were part of the Earth Liberation Front, the ELF. And these were people who were devoted to protecting the environment, but used radical means to get their point across. In fact, they burned a number of buildings associated with the logging companies. Now, they burned these buildings when nobody was there. And in all of the work done by the Earth Liberation Front, nobody was ever hurt or killed. Nonetheless, they're described as eco-terrorists. And they get sentences that are associated with terrorists. Now, for many who are paying attention here, go, wait a second. Why are you calling them terrorists when they don't kill a person? Timothy McVeigh puts a bomb in that federal building and kills hundreds of people. These people go out of their way not to hurt people. Why are you using the term terrorists? Well, many argue it's a kind of dysphemism that makes what they're doing sound worse than it really is. Terrorists, and you can think of other examples that would be a dysphemism. So euphemisms make it sound better, dysphemisms make it sound worse. And these are words that are chosen to kind of slant the argument in one way or another. As you can see, these words would have nothing to do with the logical validity of an argument or its soundness. But nonetheless, they would still serve the objective of trying to persuade the audience. So you need to be wary. Watch out for euphemisms and dysphemisms. We also want to be wary of what we call rhetorical definitions. We've referred to these before. Rhetorical definitions use emotively charged language to express or elicit an attitude about something. For example, if we refer to abortion as the murder of an unborn child, that's going to be a very loaded definition. You're using the term murder. What do we do with murderers? We punish them. So are you referring to the mother of that aborted this child as a murderer? Yes, according to this definition. So we would call this a rhetorical definition. Yes, ma'am?
Is it correct to say that rhetorical definitions try to persuade, or that's not necessarily true?
They do try to persuade, absolutely. What else were you asking? I'm sorry?
Or that if it's true in all rhetorical definitions, or it can happen or not?
Well, the definition of a rhetorical definition is a definition that's trying to persuade in some way and is slanting the terms in that definition in order to achieve that end. And so the authors of our book are going to argue that you should avoid rhetorical definitions in your argument. When you define terms, that should be a common ground that everybody agrees on. Republicans and Democrats should agree on what we mean by democracy or what we mean by these individual terms. And you should make the argument support the conclusion rather than your definitions of the terms involved in the argument. Yes, sir?
Well, I was just going to say, isn't that usually rhetorical definitions are used for terms that are divisive, like that
Like abortion?
Yeah, that a part of the country believes it's the murder of an unborn child, and some other people believe it's fine. And or for example, you say conservative, like basically who's saying that is somebody that's against conservative, and somebody who's conservative would never say that. So I'm saying So it's gonna be hard to find to be that a term that everybody agrees on.
Excellent point. Abortion is a perfect example of a term that we do not agree on. So your point's well taken. It might be difficult to find a definition that is not rhetorical in some way, according to some group. If you find a definition of the term abortion that does not convey this idea of murder, people on the conservative side might argue that you're developing a rhetorical definition that serves the interests of the other side of the argument. So you're absolutely right. With divisive terms, it might be difficult to find a definition that both sides view as not being rhetorical in some fashion. Excellent point. Yes, sir?
I guess the problem is that words don't have the innate meaning, but the people who say them give them meaning.
Yep.
People who interpret them filter them. Give them like their own. I've never heard a conservative argument against abortion that addresses rape at all. Or
There are some who argue that it is even wrong in that case, and they're actually going out now and politically trying to persuade people that even in the case of rape, you should carry the child to term. It's pretty hardcore.
But imagine how much hostility and animosity the child will receive all its life. It will surely grow up to become vengeful and damaged.
Hard to say.
It's not entirely true.
What's that?
So I don't agree with that. I mean, you know, you have the child, you put it up for adoption, then some family who can't have a kid, you know, has the opportunity to raise a family.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily need to know that they were a product of something negative.
Doesn't necessarily have to hurt the child.
Problem is we have too many children who are up for adoption, and I don't see a lot of conservative politicians adopting kids.
Many women would argue from the woman's perspective that they have absolutely no right whatsoever to tell people what to do with their life in that kind of circumstance. It's a complete failure to understand the fact that we live in a free country. And for many women, the idea that we're jumping to the debate about the child shows the extent to which men really don't care about a woman's freedom to do what she wants with her own body. The idea that we debate about, oh, if we do it this way, it helped the child, or it hurt. What about the woman who's making the call? And so that would be, I know many feminists would point to that issue. Your point, however, is well taken. There are many ways in which we can handle the child that wouldn't have those problems associated with it. Let me get on a little bit with the story here. So we have rhetorical definitions, and we also have rhetorical explanations. Explanations are going to be loaded in a way that serves the purpose of your argument. And we can load terms into this explanation that will do the work. For example, he lost the fight because he lost his nerve. You're accusing a fighter of losing nerve. That's big time language, man. You could have said it this way. He lost because he was too cautious. Now, if you supported the fighter, that would be one way to explain the loss. That doesn't make the fighter look bad. If you don't like the fighter, if you never have liked the fighter, if you're looking for ways to make the fighter look bad, you say that he lost his nerve. It looks like he was a little chicken, Bob. What do you think? Yeah, I think so too. Man, it's an explanation that really serves larger purposes. So you're putting in divisive, emotive language in there that will clearly turn people against the fighter if you're referring to this one. And you can think of all kinds of examples. People want to tear down our president now, and he loses leadership, or he lacks leadership. Is a big term now. He lacks leadership because he doesn't draw a line in the sand and argue, hard for it. Now, you could argue that that kind of criticism could be a kind of rhetorical explanation. The president hasn't, exhibited leadership. A couple things about that real quick. Drawing a line in the sand and arguing that everybody should follow it. If anybody's paying attention and remembers the last Democratic president we had, President Clinton, well, he did that with health care, and he got it shoved up his backside. And they also explained it. You see, President Clinton, you don't really understand Washington. These legislators, they're here for a reason. It's their responsibility. You don't drop a bill and then try to shove it down everybody's throat. You allow legislators to do their job. That's what they told Clinton.
No.
Well, President Obama is kind of doing something as if he was paying attention and learned the lessons, and now they're accusing him of not exhibiting leadership because he doesn't draw up the bill in his office and then try to get everybody to agree with it as he wrote it in his office. Instead, he gives the legislature general principles to follow and allows them to do their job. Well, one could argue that this is leadership that pays attention to what happened to past presidents. But you could argue, oh, he lacks leadership. In fact, that is what Hank Williams Jr. apparently argued on Fox News yesterday, and he actually said that Boehner, by going to play golf with the president, it was akin to going to play golf with Hitler. And as a result, they didn't play Hank Williams' song to open up the Monday Night Football game as they have for the past, 30 years, I believe.
What song is it?
It's All My Rowdy Friends Are Coming Over Tonight, and they put different lyrics in for Monday Night Football. And they've been using that song to open Monday Night Football since the 80s or the 70s or something. But they pulled it last night because Hank Williams compared the president to Hitler. Be a kind of exaggeration. It'd be an example of hyperbole, which we're going to get to in a little bit.
And you said Obama was the enemy.
Yes, Obama is the enemy.
Even Fox News anchors were like, what?
Yeah.
You want to go with that, Hank? Go ahead, Hershey. Yeah, that was interesting the way the Fox panel handled Hank Williams Jr.
Did you catch that Cheney asked Obama for an apology for being too hard on the Bush administration?
Wow.
Which is ridiculous because Cheney, Ed Schultz went on this tirade after that. He says, Cheney doesn't have a right to ask any American for an apology at all. He owes every person in this country a litany of apologies.
Torture, energy policy, Halliburton,
The Valerie
fraud.
Plame,
Valerie Plame, yeah.
he needs to apologize for
exposing a
for
CIA agent.
every casualty in Iraq, every wounded soldier in Iraq, for lying about a war of choice. The
Hard to even
list is
address
longer than
that.
we have time to.
Hard to even address that. Now, another rhetorical device that unfortunately will be used are stereotypes. Stereotypes. Thought or image about a group based on little or no evidence. And, some examples: women are emotional, men are insensitive, lesbians are man-haters, Southerners are bigoted, blondes are not smart. And we can find, little ways to associate a person with one of these stereotypes and thereby undermine the attention given to their argument. And often it's quite subtle how we do this. Many speakers are going to not want to be overt about making a kind of stereotypical reference, but there are kind of, what they call them, code words that people can use to kind of show that they're sensitive to these issues while not being overt about them. Any other stereotypes?
Women are terrible drivers.
Oh, jump right on that, Archie. Some issues there. Women are? more than men? Is there any statistics on that?
Yes.
Asians are
There?
worse drivers.
That women are worse than men?
No, more. I thought you said women are more than men.
Oh, there are more.
More
women.
women than men, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. And then if there are more women drivers, then there are probably more crazy women drivers. Just the odds would suggest that, right? Is that the argument going? Sure it is, yeah. A little arguing with his girlfriend or something. So the point here is that these stereotypical references can be used to induce an audience to accept a claim about a group with little or no evidence. All blondes are not going to be smart. All the other stereotypes. Want to avoid them. Here's a fun one. Innuendo. Innuendo. Getting a point across without explicitly stating it can be used to induce a negative reaction. And in many cases, these are literary genius. Let's consider an example. Parallipsis is a way to say something without saying it, similar to what we're saying here. So let's say you have two candidates in a race, and one of them says, I am proof that there is at least one candidate in this race that does not have a drinking problem. I didn't say my colleague has a drinking problem. I didn't say that, but I suggest it by what I say about myself. Innuendo. Saying something without saying something. This is a famous one from W.C. Fields. I didn't say the meat was tough. I said I didn't see the horse that's usually tied up outside. Where's my rim shot? Come on, wake up, Becca. This is a joke, and it's intended to provide, a reason for thinking that the meat is tough. He's not saying that it's horse meat, but he is implying it through what he says here. So innuendo can be a way of tagging your opponent with some issue without actually accusing the opponent of the issue. And it's very, very dangerous. There's also ways we can do it through faint praise. Faint praise can be a damning thing. She has done good work, I suppose. I suppose. I suppose. Put an I suppose on the end of it to really just undermine the whole thing. She's done good work, I suppose. I suppose. Oh. She's proved to be useful so far. So far. Implying that there will be a point in the future when she won't be useful. The I suppose and the so far clearly put on there intentionally to undermine the praise that you're giving this person. Surprisingly, she seems very astute. Why is that a surprise? Why? This is faint praise. Giving praise under what is normally expected, which raises red flags to anybody who's reading the letter of reference or listening to the comments. When you hear I suppose and so far, big red flags go up. Oh, might consider the next candidate. Might consider the next candidate. Innuendo. Any other examples of innuendo?
This has Sarah Palin written all over. I was just watching
Sarah Palin.
this video of her, and I don't usually pay attention, but she was saying, I don't know about mother, but why I'm good. Why she says why she's successful because she goes out and she says to people out from that she loves America and she believes in America and stuff. And I guess she was trying to hint that other people
Don't believe in America.
don't like Obama and stuff like
That's
that.
right, yeah.
And she didn't say it straight, but everybody knew that what she was referring to.
What specifically? What do you think she's referring to?
No, because it was about economy and everything, and
Right.
she was saying like we need a president that's not, because I guess it was right after Obama's education speech where he was talking about how the world is changing and we have to accept that we have to compete with other people and stuff like that. And she was saying, like, what she was saying is basically what he's saying is that America is late, so he doesn't like America and he thinks other people are better and stuff like that. And she said that
He doesn't believe in American
Yeah.
exceptionalism.
yeah, that's right. And she's like, but we need to go back to our old America. I go back there and tell them like, America is the best country, and I believe in America. That's what people need.
But Obama's looking at where we are on reading and math, and actually, we're not the best. And what's tragic is that our students now coming out of high school, I love this statistic, we're like, in math 21st, in reading 28th, but we're number 1 in confidence. I'm sure I'm going to do well. I'm sure I'm going to get a good job out there.
Overconfidence. I'm sure she could have said something like, Obama doesn't really care about foreign policy and immigration, but I go down to the beach every day and look for Russians.
Absolutely.
Look out, I watch them and I just see what they're up to, see what they're doing, and ask them why they came here. And
I can see him from my house.
right, you can see Moscow from my house.
Doesn't look like she's running for president this year. Comment, question?
Can you put innuendo just by like putting emphasis on a certain word in a sentence?
Give us an
So like
example.
saying like, I did this, or like you know what I mean?
Rather than you or others.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. The way I did this, I think it'll succeed. Absolutely. Innuendo can be based on just emphasis, like a comma, subtle. Yes, sir, ma'am.
Sometimes people give like compliments when they don't mean it. For example, I had a difficult client, and the girl who was giving activities, she said, "Oh, Mr. So-and-so, he's very nice." I said, "Oh, yes, he's nice to me." But she didn't mean to say he was nice. She wanted to say he's mean, but she said, he is nice. Is that meant praise or?
As opposed to just saying something that's not true.
I
Yes.
think nice is a euphemism.
Yeah.
For like you're boring or something, or you're, like nice. Nice is like, it's the most mediocre positive word.
Yeah, when girls are like, oh, he's nice.
Nice. It doesn't feel good. I don't want to be called nice. I want to be taken as kind, but not nice. You know what I mean? It's not.
I do.
It's a different value.
And actually, nice is an interesting word. If you look it up in the Oxford Edition Dictionary that gives you the historical evolution of its definition, in the past, distant past, a nice boy was one who was effeminate. And then it evolves into meaning nice job and all this stuff. And I remember I gave this presentation where it was on the philosophy of language, and I focused on that term nice and showed how it referred to homosexuals at one point, and then it comes to mean competent and all this stuff. And I get done with my presentation, and the professor, of course, says, "Nice job." So, thank you, thank you. Absolutely. Nice. But that, if they're going to think about words to the extent that they're going to call it a death tax rather than an inheritance tax, using the term nice rather than excellent or great, these have significance. And sometimes the word will be the difference from people saying intuitively, yeah, I agree, or intuitively, no, I disagree. And there are a lot of people with PhDs who will get groups together and get them hitting a red button or a blue button just on basic terms. Does that make you feel good? Death tax. Okay, good. He's a nice president. You agree with that? Okay. Well, they're testing these words and showing which ones work and which ones don't. And pretty soon, Mitt Romney's going to be saying a lot of these words eventually. Watch that. Loaded questions. here's where we build into the question that we're asking some of the assumptions that have not been proven yet, that we're assuming to be true. Famous example, Kaylin, when did you stop beating your girlfriend?
Sounds like a loaded question.
It does, and here, because there is no answer to this question that will be correct, assuming that you're not beating your girlfriend.
Never started.
Absolutely. But the question assumes that he has started beating his wife. So the question is going to assume something that is not true. And you are forced to question the assumptions of the question rather than simply answering it.
Sounds like legal jargon. Would that be a fair question in the courthouse, or would it be thrown out objective by the?
It would be,
other side?
there would be an objection, or certainly in your answer, you'd have to clarify that the assumptions in the question are in fact wrong. But this can happen in many different ways. Hey, did you stop doing that heroin? You know, we can always ask questions that assume things that are not true. And when we do that, we're asking what we call a loaded question. You'll find a bunch of those. Usually not in a debate, because they're trying to ask fair questions. But if you get on Fox News or a Republican gets on MSNBC, you can expect some loaded questions coming down the pike, perhaps. If you're watching advertisements, you'll see weaselers all over the place. Weaselers. What are weaselers? These are linguistic methods of hedging a bet. Linguistic methods of hedging a bet to make sure that you are not wrong. Let me give you an example to explain. You've heard this before if you were alive on the planet. When I'm a kid, I can remember so many gum commercials saying something along the lines of this. 3 out of 4 dentists surveyed recommend sugarless gum for their patients that chew gum. Now, think of the weaselers in here. First, only dentists surveyed. 3 out of 4 dentists surveyed. So I can go and I can pick 4 dentists who all, are chewing gum right now. And I can survey them. And out of that 4 that I survey, I can get 3 that are going to agree with me. So the fact that you're only judging the dentists that are surveyed. And then the next one, for their patients who chew gum. So these dentists are not recommending gum for everybody. In fact, most dentists will recommend that you do not chew gum because it's bad for your teeth. But for those who already chew gum, the dentist will recommend that you use this kind rather than another. So these dentists are not recommending gum to their patients. They're only recommending gum to the patients who already chew gum. So 2 weaselers in here. Only dentists surveyed and only the patients who chew gum already. Weasel words. We can use these and they hedge our bet too. Perhaps he's a liar. Perhaps. What the heck? If one candidate said that in a Republican debate, perhaps Rick Perry is a liar. Well, that would be a loaded thing to say because you aren't really accusing him of being a liar. You're only saying it's possible that he is. Well, why are you suggesting that it's possible?
That way you're wrong.
What's that?
That way you're wrong.
You can still be right. And that's what we mean by hedging the bets. Even if you're wrong, he isn't a liar. You've only said perhaps, so you weren't wrong. Perhaps. Sometimes weaseling can be constructive. In order to be accurate, we're going to have to be precise about the dentists we did survey and what they're recommending. So some of these words, you'll find them in philosophical essays and academic essays that are published in journals because they want to be precise about what they're saying. And that's important as well. Weaselers. Any question about Weaselers? Downplayers. These are words and other devices used to denigrate someone or something. For example, don't mind what Mr. McWhorter says in class, he's a liberal. They used to use that term. Now I guess they call Democrats progressives. And they try to not use the term liberal because that term has been beaten down like a wet dog for so long that they want to avoid using it. But some would see this as a way of putting down what Mr. Pierce says in class and leading you to ignore it. Or if we use the term mere or merely. I have a yellow belt, my sister merely has a green belt. Merely. I have a degree, you merely have a certificate. Merely. Merely. So-called. She's a so-called doctor. Oh, you're a so-called brain surgeon. Oh, you think you're fancy pants. Throwing in these words obviously is in an effort to downplay the significance of the achievement that you're describing. He is merely a doctor. Don't listen to him. Yes, sir.
Someone were to say like, oh, I go to Maryland, you just go to
Montgomery College.
That
Merely.
Merely.
Merely. Don't tick me off. Quotation marks. Once again, used as a downplayer. Oh, you got a degree from Phoenix University. Oh, that's cute. Isn't that nice? They give it to you in the mail, do they? Huh? So by putting quotation marks around it, you're really, they also call it scare quotes. You're actually kind of making fun of this degree from a correspondence school. So downplayers are going to be words and other devices that denigrate someone or something. Looks like we are finished for the day. So we're going to have a quiz on Thursday. That quiz will be on predominantly Chapter 4 and Chapter 3. Just those two chapters, and we'll begin class on Thursday with that quiz. I'll see you there.
You say we should